Hey guys, tonight we slip into well-worn sandals, brush the dust from our shoulders, and start walking into Asia, like it's just across the street. The stars are sharp over your head, the Hellespont glittering behind you. You've said your goodbye to Greece, dramatic speech and all, and now you're officially invading an entire continent. No pressure. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Are you in bed, on the couch, secretly listening under your desk? I won't tell. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are Alexander. You've just crossed the Hellespont with a few tens of thousands of men and a very expensive horse. You're 22, heavily perfumed, like alarmingly perfumed, and convinced, beyond a doubt, that you're descended from Achilles, Heracles, and probably Zeus if anyone asks twice. You've brought scrolls of Homer with you instead of socks, because you have priorities. Your general staff includes some of the smartest and most tired men in the known world. And your army. They follow you because you make everything sound like it belongs in a poem. The air in Asia Minor is dry and spiced with resin from unfamiliar trees. Your Macedonian soldiers keep squinting at the sun like it's doing it on purpose. There are blisters, lots of blisters. You start to smell your own army before you see it. And they are nervous because, well, Persia is huge, unfathomably huge. The equivalent of walking into a corporate headquarters with a sharp stick and yelling, "I'm your new CEO," and yet you press forward. Your scouts bring word of Persian satraps preparing a welcome party, not the fun kind. The Persians assume you'll hesitate. Instead, you tighten your sandals, check your bronze mirror one last time. Your hair must always be slightly windblown, never disheveled, and keep marching. At night, you read Homer by firelight. You actually quote lines from memory loudly, in the original Greek, just to make sure everyone within earshot knows you're the main character. Your tent is filled with maps, incense, and the constant scratching of Ptolemy trying to figure out whether rivers bend out of annoyance or geography. You reach Troy. Yes, that Troy, the ruined city of legend. You kneel at Achilles' tomb and, without irony, swap your shield for a sacred one kept in the temple. Is it better? Not really, but it's mythically significant, and you love symbolism more than comfort. You reenact parts of the Iliad with your best friend Hephaestion, assigning yourself the most heroic parts, naturally. The two of you run around. The ruins like kids who read too many fantasy books, except you're armed and very real, and your soldiers are starting to believe you might actually be the reincarnation of some kind of divine rage monster. But the thing is, Bamboo, you don't sleep. Not really. You rest, you lie down, but there's always something pacing inside your skull. Even here, among broken marble and dry grass, something in you itches forward. Maybe it's ambition, maybe it's the constant awareness that the Persian army is somewhere out there, sharpening things. Or maybe you just never learned how to stop. There's also the logistics, water, food, where to park the siege engines. You brought those, of course. Your quartermasters try to keep up, but your route changes daily depending on which god you're consulting that morning. One day it's Zeus Ammon, the next a weather pattern. The Persians, meanwhile, seem to be waiting for you to get bored and go home. Cute. Your army makes contact with small Persian outposts. They're not exactly putting up resistance, more like raising eyebrows. You send diplomats ahead, offering leniency and drama in equal measure. Some cities open their gates, others don't. You mark the ones that don't with extra red ink on your map, and everywhere you go, stories follow. You walked across the Hellespont and made sacrifices to Poseidon. You visited Troy and left gifts. You wear Achilles' armor. Are you mortal? Kind of. Are you theatrical? Absolutely. One evening, you pass through an olive grove that whispers when the wind moves through it just right. You pause, listen, and claim you heard a prophecy in the rustle. Your officers nod. They've learned to just go with it. You declare that Persia will fall, that the gods walk with you, and that the army should eat more dates for strength. They cheer. They always do. They also really like dates. Here's a curious historical aside. At this point, your army had a group of official scribes and historians writing everything down, some of them probably inventing dramatic flourishes just to keep up with your sense of destiny. You essentially had the ancient world's version of a content team, and still, when night falls and the fires dim, you lie awake, staring up into the ink-black sky. You wonder how many cities are out there, how many rivers, how many names to carve into stone. You're already dreaming of elephants and deserts and mountains no one's ever crossed. Your men think you're resting, but inside your head, there's only forward, and you haven't even reached your first real battle yet. You hear the Granicus before you see it. The river doesn't roar. It murmurs as if warning you politely that this is where things get serious. Your scouts report Persian cavalry lined up on the far bank, gleaming in the late spring sun, horses, stamping and armor clattering like nervous wind chimes. This is your first real test. And obviously you choose the most dramatic possible moment to charge. Your generals recommend waiting. You've just marched a full day, your men are tired, and rivers are notoriously bad places to fight battles. But you don't really do wait, you do now, you do destiny. Also, you probably skipped breakfast again, so you ride to the front, pull your helmet down over your perfect curls and give one of those speeches. You know the type, part Homer, part motivational workshop, something about honor and immortality, and are you not tired of being ordinary? The phalangites cheer, the cavalry mounts up, and Parmenion sighs deeply somewhere behind you, and then you charge into the river. Turns out, rivers are slippery. Your horse stumbles for a second, regains its footing. Your men follow, splashing. Through waist-deep water, spears up, shouting things that are half battle cries, half attempts not to drown. Persian arrows whistle overhead, which is historically accurate but also quite rude. You make it across first, of course, because you're Alexander. What follows is chaos, but beautiful chaos, like a choreographed disaster. Your companion cavalry slams into the Persian line, and for a few breathless minutes no one knows who's winning. Then you spot a Persian noble charging straight at you with a raised axe. Your instincts kick in. You parry, he shouts something you don't catch, and you're knocked halfway out of the saddle, and then Clytus the Black appears. Not a Marvel character, but your real-life bodyguard and old-school lifesaver. He cleaves the attacker's arm, clean off before the axe reaches your neck. You nod at him like thanks, but also don't tell Mom. Somehow the momentum shifts. Your phalanx pushes up from the river. The Persians falter. The enemy line starts to crumble. The survivors flee inland, leaving behind a mess of helmets, shields, and dented pride. You've won. Your first major battle, and you didn't even dry your boots first. You dismount, walk along the muddy shore, and survey the field. You make a show of treating the fallen Persian commanders with honor, sending their bodies back to their families. You also collect their armor and send it to Athens as a little gift with a message. Alexander, son of Philip, and the Greeks, except the Spartans, defeated the Persians at the Granicus. You specifically exclude the Spartans because they didn't show up and, well, petty is eternal. Historical fact, you lost almost no high-ranking men in the battle, a few hundred Macedonians, several thousand Persians. The odds weren't in your favor, but your absolute commitment to main character energy seems to be working. You march on. The cities of Asia Minor begin opening their gates, some enthusiastically, others with the enthusiasm of a cat being bathed. You let some local rulers stay in power, as long as they swear loyalty and possibly rename a few towns Alexandria. You're up to what? 3 Alexandrias by now. At night you still don't sleep. You try. But every time you close your eyes, you see new cities to conquer. Your tent smells like a bizarre mix of horse sweat, burning oil, and imported perfume. You pace. You mumble lines from Homer. Hephaestion throws a pillow at you, which is frankly deserved. You begin writing letters to your mother, Olympias, back in Macedonia. They are long, dramatic, and vaguely passive-aggressive. You update her on your victories, hint at your semi-divinity, and casually mention that the gods seem very fond of you lately. You don't mention almost getting decapitated in the river. No need to worry her. You also start collecting local experts, scholars, engineers, translators. Your version of empire includes libraries and aqueducts and very particular city planning. Make the main roads perpendicular, you say, and a statue of me, maybe next to a well. And here's a fun fact. After the battle, you personally visited the wounded, including Greeks who'd fought for the Persians. Instead of executing them, you let them go. You weren't just conquering territory, you were conquering minds. And sometimes minds like a second chance. As you push deeper into the interior, the terrain shifts, rolling hills, thicker heat. Your men start speaking in curses made up on the spot. Supplies get weird. At one point, your cooks try to serve camel stew with honey. It doesn't go over well, but morale remains high. Why? Because you lead from the front. You're soaked when they're soaked. You're bleeding when they're bleeding. And when you talk about gods and glory, you say it like someone who's already halfway to Olympus. And still you don't sleep. You try music, lyras and soft flutes. You try reading. You try pacing slow circles around campfires while mumbling about fate. Hephaestion, bless him, starts bringing you warm milk mixed with saffron and wine. It helps. A little. But your dreams, when they come, are always full of movement. Chariots, rivers, horses galloping towards cities with names you can't pronounce, yet you've crossed into Persia now, and you're not going back. You arrive in Gordium expecting dust and bureaucracy. Instead, you're handed a puzzle, and not the fun kind with cats on the box, the ancient kind that's supposedly been waiting for you for centuries. The city itself is sleepy, wrapped in hills and half-traded legends. You roll in with your entourage already sweating through your bronze, and immediately hear whispers, the knot, as in the Gordian knot, the one tied to a king's cart in the temple courtyard. The one that no one has been able to untie for generations. The legend goes, whoever unravels the knot will rule all of Asia. Subtle, right? Naturally, you make your way to the shrine. Your sandals crunch over sun-baked gravel. The priest explains the knot's spiritual significance. The cart is old, cracked with age, and the rope is twisted into what looks like the anxiety dreams of a fisherman. Several of your generals shift awkwardly behind you. One of them might be mouthing, "We don't have time for this." But you ignore them. You step forward, look at the knot for a long theatrical moment, then draw your sword and slice straight through it. Clean cut, rope drops. The crowd gasps. You probably wink. Technically, you've just broken several ritual laws and insulted 1,000 years of tradition. But you also fulfilled the prophecy by any means necessary. And that, you tell your scribes later, is the kind of initiative Asia needs. You throw a feast that night. Gordium offers wine, roasted lamb, and a local dish that's 90% mint and 10% regret. Your men toast you over and over, calling you Master of Asia, even though you haven't actually taken most of it yet. It's fine, you're working on it. In a quiet corner, Hephaestion raises an eyebrow and mutters, "You just made that up." You respond with a grin and say, "So did most of history, but not everything's celebratory. Persia hasn't forgotten you." Darius III, the actual king of kings, is finally paying attention. He's gathering forces, real ones this time. Full armies, not just frontier garrisons. Word is he's not thrilled about the whole river charge incident. Also not thrilled about you cutting through sacred knots like they were shoelaces. Still, you continue east, sending messages to nearby satraps. Submit peacefully and get to keep your cushions. Most decline. You add them to your growing mental list of future Alexandrias, fun historical aside. While in Gordium, you spend a good chunk of time reorganizing local administration, which is very unglamorous but extremely effective. You appoint new governors, standardize weights and measures, and introduce a tax code that doesn't make everyone cry. Your secret, letting locals think it was their idea. Back in camp, you finally get a full night's rest. Kind of. You dream of cities made of white marble, rising like waves over the desert. In the dream, you walk alone through a columned hall where the ceiling keeps shifting height. You wake up suddenly, convinced the gods are trying to tell you something, but they really need to be more clear. As you travel on, the terrain changes again. It's greener now, richer. You pass vineyards and wheat fields, their colors glowing in the late afternoon sun. The river valleys hum with birdsong, and your men start to relax, dangerously so. One evening, a merchant approaches your column with a gift, a cage of trained partridges and a flute made from cedar wood. You accept it graciously, try the flute, realize you're awful, and hand it off to Hephaestion, who's only slightly better. Your army's morale improves with music, lighter air, and the rumor that you're now blessed by local spirits. A priest. You barely remember talking to claimed your sword stroke was divine. You don't deny it. There's an odd tension in you, though, a low buzz of discontent that even wine doesn't quiet. You've done everything right. Won a battle, performed a miracle, technically, reorganized a province, and still sleep comes late. You lie awake, counting torchlights outside your tent, imagining the miles still ahead. Darius is waiting. You can feel it. You start practicing speeches in your head, things you'll say to him when you meet. Something dramatic, something memorable. Maybe even in Persian. Your tutors taught you a little. Enough to get through, "I am the rightful king, and please pass the dates." Meanwhile, your scribes are writing everything down. You make sure of it. You've started to realize something important. Conquest is temporary, but storytelling is forever. So you lean into it. You have one historian rewrite your first battle to include thunder. Another version features a talking eagle. You never confirm or deny either. By the end of the month, Gordium fades behind you. You're deep into Asia Minor now. The roads are narrower, the people wear new patterns, and the languages spoken around the campfires are multiplying. You pick up phrases, nod thoughtfully when people talk about local harvests, and casually conquer a few minor cities along the way, and yet, still restless. One night you climb a ridge alone. The sky is velvet, scattered with stars you don't recognize. You sit on a boulder, the wind tugging at your cloak, and ask out loud, "How far is enough?" No one answers. Which is annoying, because this would have been a great time for a god to appear. Instead, there's just the soft creak of trees and a distant owl. You stay there until dawn, then ride back to camp as if nothing happened. You are Alexander. You've tied your fate to a sword stroke, and from this point forward there's no uncutting the knot. You descend into Cilicia like a storm wearing sandals. The Taurus Mountains fall behind you, cliffs that scraped your elbows and tried to twist your ankles for the better part of a week. Your men are sunburned, blistered, and exhausted, though you insist they look noble in their suffering, which is exactly the kind of thing someone not carrying their own armor says. Below, the plains stretch wide and fertile. Rivers curl like silver serpents through golden fields. And somewhere out there, Darius is waiting with an army so big, it probably has its own postal code. But first, Tarsus. Tarsus greets you with open gates and cautious hospitality. The city has heard what happened at Granicus, and rumors of you slicing a sacred knot have spread faster than you can say legacy branding. They offer wine, figs, and a curious local delicacy, riverfish cooked in pomegranate molasses. You pretend to like it. You don't. You spot a river running through the city, the Cydnus, clear, fast, beautiful, and, as it turns out, bone-chillingly cold. So obviously you jump in. Everyone says, "No, Alexander, please don't. The water is icy and you've just marched for days." Sire, but you wave them off like a lifeguard on his day off and dive in head first. Fun historical fact. You immediately catch hypothermia. Not just the shivers. We're talking full-on collapse, barely conscious, high fever. Let's start planning the funeral hypothermia. They carry you out of the river like a soggy myth. Your lips blue, your muscles locking up, and everyone panicking in 10 different languages. You are not awake for the drama that follows, but here's the recap. Your doctors argue, violently, about whether to use wine or herbal poultices. Your army gathers outside the tent, terrified their hero might die from recreational bathing. You finally wake up and hand your physician, Philip, a letter from your mother. She warned you someone might try to poison you. You look Philip in the eye, drink the medicine he's mixed, and wait. You don't die. Because of course not. In fact, you recover so dramatically that people start saying you're invincible. Some whisper, divine. Others whisper, absolutely unhinged. You like both. Once upright, you resume reorganizing the region. The army gets new uniforms, officers are promoted. You give an impromptu speech under a fig tree about courage and hygiene. You also introduce your new habit, reading by lantern. Light at night, wrapped in 3 cloaks and sipping hot herbal tea like a philosopher. But your real thoughts are elsewhere. Darius has finally moved. Your scouts bring word. A massive Persian army is camped near Issus, just beyond the Amanus Mountains. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, cavalry, archers, elephants maybe. The numbers are so big they start to sound made up. He's positioned, himself behind you. Which means, dramatic gasp, you're now between Darius and his supply lines, between him and Babylon, between him and Persia itself. You decide that's good news. You gather your commanders in a grove just outside Tarsus. Parmenion frowns. This is dangerous, he says, pointing at the terrain. He's cutting us off. You smile. No. I'm cutting him off. He sighs again. He does that a lot. Your army marches north in silence, along narrow coastal roads. Cliffs on one side, sea on the other. The tension is a living thing. No one sings, even your cavalry stops bragging. Hephaestion sharpens his sword quietly, which is his version of yelling. That night, you climb a small hill alone. You do that a lot now. Solo walks staring at the stars like they owe you an answer. The moonlight bathes the road below. You think about Gordium. You think about that river. You think about how close you came to dying and how part of you was okay with it. The next morning your scouts return. They've seen Darius's camp. It's massive. Tents stretch to the horizon. His banner, a golden eagle above a mountain, snaps in the wind. There are musicians, fire pits, and the scent of cardamom and fear. You call your army to formation. There's no time for fancy speeches. Just a sharp nod and 3 words. We move now. Issus isn't just a battle, it's a performance. And you're ready for your second act. The plain at Issus stretches before you like a stage set for an epic drama. The sky is the kind of clear blue that makes you squint. The sun low enough to cast long shadows, but high enough to remind everyone that there's no hiding today. Your scouts have done their work. Darius's army is indeed vast, and he's carefully positioned his forces between you and the sea. The only escape route is narrow, hemmed in by the mountains on one side and the Mediterranean on the other, perfect for a trap or a bold maneuver. You pace along the line of your troops, feeling the tension in the air, thick like summer heat. The cavalry fidget, the phalanx holds steady, and your officers exchange nervous glances that say, "What's the plan, boss?" You smile inwardly. Plans are your thing. The Persians boast numbers 3 times your own, and they bring elephants, massive, lumbering tanks with trunks that can knock down men like twigs. You watch as they parade their beasts, draped in gold and silk, the elephant's breath steaming in the cool morning air. Here's a quirky fact. Persian war elephants weren't native to Persia. They came from India, and it turns out they're quite moody. One reportedly once ran amok during a battle because it was startled by the smell of garlic. You can't help but think garlic warfare might have been the missing piece in ancient military strategy. Back to Issus. Your battle plan relies on speed and precision. You order your phalanx to hold the center like an immovable wall. Your companion. Cavalry will flank the Persian left. Meanwhile, you'll lead a smaller, faster force around the mountains to strike at Darius himself. You feel that familiar surge, equal parts excitement and exhaustion. You remind yourself this is why you started all this, because history loves a main character who shows up in the nick of time. The battle begins with a thunderous clash. Spears meet swords, horses scream and buck, arrows fill the air, looking like angry bees. Your men move as one, practiced and deadly. At one point you spot a Persian officer waving a giant flag, his beard wild as he yells orders. You make a mental note to remember that beard for later stories. The fight is brutal, but calculated. Your soldiers hold formation even as elephants crash through, causing chaos and panic. You bark orders, dodge a charging elephant's trunk, which nearly squashes your helmet, and push forward. Suddenly you catch sight of Darius, not far behind. His lines looking every bit the regal monarch, flowing robes, golden armor, and a face that says, "This is going to sting." You signal Hephaestion. The 2 of you lead the cavalry around the mountain pass, racing the sun and the shadows. The terrain is rough, rocky, narrow, and your horse slips once, nearly throwing you off. You joke to yourself that a proper helmet might help. The cavalry crashes into Darius's rear guard, scattering his troops. Darius flees in his chariot, abandoning the field and his army. You don't chase immediately, too risky, but the sight of his retreat sends a wave of energy through your ranks. Your men cheer, the Persians waver, and the battle swings decisively in your favor. By nightfall, Issus is yours. You spend the evening tending to your wounded and sending messages to Greek cities celebrating the victory. You're now officially the biggest thorn in Darius's side. But sleep? That old friend is still playing hard to get. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling of your tent, hearing the soft hum of campfires and the occasional groan of a soldier. Your mind is already racing toward the next conquest, Egypt, Babylon, the rumored treasures of Persia. You think about your own mortality, about how fleeting victory is and how quickly the tide can turn, but mostly, you think about what it will take to truly make history. Another strange detail. You've taken to drinking a concoction of warm milk and honey before bed, something the local healers swear by for calming nerves. It works for a little while before the dreams begin. Dreams of chariots racing over endless sands, of swords clashing under burning skies, and of a crown heavy enough to crush a man's soul. But for now, the night is yours. The stars above Issus burn bright, like distant fires calling you onward. You step into Babylon beneath a sky smeared with sunset and dust. The gates don't just open, they spill open like the city itself has been holding its breath for centuries, waiting for you. Priests in robes the color of ripe figs bow low. Musicians pluck foreign strings. Peacocks strut across mosaic tiles, and you just nod, as if all of this was inevitable. Because, in your mind, it is. You've conquered a city of wonders, and yet the wonder doesn't settle inside you. Not really. That little emptiness is still there, tucked behind your ribs. You order the army to rest, to clean their weapons, to bathe in the Euphrates. You try to rest too, but the moment your head touches the embroidered linen, you're already wondering what lies beyond the next bend in the river. Your new advisors, speaking careful Greek with thick accents, bring tribute, strange fruits, painted ceramics, a lion on a gold leash. You thank them politely and ask how many days to Susa. When they say 6, you nod once and whisper, "Make it 5." At night, your dreams are a patchwork of chaos. You see yourself building a city in the shape of a star. You see your father Philip smiling and bleeding. You see Hephaestion holding your hand as the fires rise. But mostly you see the horizon, always beyond. You still write to your mother, of course. You tell her Babylon is impressive, though it could use more statues of you. You mention your expanding library, the curious engineers, the temples being cleaned in your name. You do not mention how you now talk to dead kings in your sleep. One morning you climb the ziggurat before dawn. The priests warn that only gods ascend at that hour, but you go anyway. From the top the city stretches like a painted carpet. You raise your hands, not in worship but in measurement. How far to the sea? How far until your name touches the edge of the world? Historical fact, Babylon was surrendered to you without a siege, not because they feared your army, but because your name had arrived before your horse ever did. The idea of Alexander conquered faster than your weapons ever could. You move on, through palm groves, across rivers swollen with meltwater, into cities where no one knows whether to fight or kneel. Some do both. You respond in kind, sometimes merciful, sometimes monumental. One town receives a new aqueduct. Another receives a statue of you in full armor, with eyes made of lapis lazuli. You're not subtle. You study local customs, ask too many questions, eat strange spices with bread, and request translations of poetry you can't pronounce. You're building something more than an empire. You're building a version of you that can live forever in other people's languages. But it's not just cities you're collecting. You notice how your old friends look more tired, how they ask questions with their eyes before speaking. You ignore the whispers about your divinity. Mostly. Sometimes you encourage them. You begin dressing differently, looser robes, brighter colors. You wear earrings. You hold your wine like the Persians do, from the base of the cup. You talk less at banquets and listen more. Some Macedonians grumble, but they follow you anyway, because what else would they do? And then Hephaestion falls ill. At first it's just a fever. He jokes about the food, about how your speeches probably made him sick. You laugh, but the laughter dries quickly. His skin grows cold. He sweats through his tunic. You send for every. healer within 10 days' ride. You don't sleep. You barely blink. You sit beside him and whisper old memories like they're spells. The river at Granicus, the lion hunt, the time he tried to sing and scared off 3 horses, and then he stops. Breathing. You don't cry immediately. You walk out into the sun like nothing happened. You give orders. You name cities. You silence anyone who even looks like they might pity you. Later, much later, you destroy the healer's home. You melt the man's furniture into nails. You ban music for a month. You wear black. You name Hephaestion a god. But it doesn't. Help? Nothing helps. You keep marching. Faster now. Toward the ends of maps. Toward places even the Persians call mythical. Your dreams get stranger. You stop writing home. You drink more. You talk to statues. And one night, under a sky choked with stars, you lie down not to sleep, but just to stop standing. For a moment. Just a moment. The ground beneath you is warm. The air smells of oil and distant thunder. Your sword lies just within reach. You close your eyes. You see the world, and it keeps spinning. You see the sea. You see a little boy running through palace halls pretending to be Achilles. You see the horizon and you finally rest. Now a calming closing to ease you out of Alexander's restless journey. The stars above stretch endlessly, a velvet blanket dotted with quiet lights that have watched over countless dreams before yours. You breathe deeply, feeling the cool night. Air fill your lungs soft and steady, a gentle rhythm to match the slow beating of your heart. The world around you is still. The distant campfires flicker like tiny beacons of warmth, and the vastness of the night wraps you in its embrace. There's a certain comfort in this quiet, an invitation to let go of the day's battles and worries. Imagine yourself lying beneath that endless sky, the earth firm beneath you, safe and unshakable. The hum of the night is a lullaby, the stars your silent guardians. Close your eyes and feel the weight of armor melting away, the sharp edge of ambition softening into a calm resolve. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a slow river, unhurried and gentle. The world can wait. Here in this moment there is only peace. Sleep may have eluded you in life, but now in this shared space of story and stillness, rest is yours to claim. Let the night cradle you. Let the quiet soothe every restless thought. Tomorrow will come, with new challenges, but for now let the calm of the cosmos fill you. And as you drift deeper, remember, even the greatest conquerors need their peace. Sweet dreams.